Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Harmony and Hustle podcast. I'm your host Shaun and I'm here with
Dan.
Hello Dan. Thank you for coming back as my co-host. I appreciate it. Need a co-host. Can't do this on my own. But today we thought we'd talk a bit about the creative process in terms of writing music. As you know, we're both musicians. Dan's a drummer and I'm a guitarist. So I thought we'd talk about a bit about how we go about writing songs. We might even delve into some other famous artists and their sort of creative process, and just sort of give our 2 cents and give some tips and tricks. If you're struggling to write songs, whether you're just starting out or you've been writing for 10 years. I've been playing guitar for about 12 years now. You've been playing drums for a good 15 years. So I think between us, we've picked up a lot of things from various artists and just stumbled into some things sort of, in our own way. So I thought we'd talk a bit about that today and sort of, try and be a bit inspirational for our listeners and indeed ourselves. So I don't know if you want to start, Dan, but so as a drummer, what's your sort of, your writing process? How would you start about writing a piece of music, whether you've got a blank slate or someone sent you a guitar riff or something like that? Sort of how do you go about writing?
As a drummer, obviously, you can't really compose a whole piece of music on your own. So it is very much working with other artists or in a band setting. And quite often, it doesn't start with the drum beat. It's often a guitar riff or like a main hook to the song.
Yeah.
Which essentially I try and find something to fit into. And that's like kind of kicks off the process. And really with that, I'm kind of working out where's the best place to put the backbeat, where's the best place to put the kick drums. And I'll often start with something simple and then develop it over time. But yeah, it's definitely an ongoing process. And I always think of trying to take the song on a journey, because obviously as a drummer, you're kind of leading the band almost.
Yeah, for sure. It's like the drummer's like the driving force behind, guitar. I think completely change the feel of a song just by, the placement of a snare or a kick.
100%. So I guess to make it more really specific, I'll try and follow like the bass guitar with a kick drum quite often and try and find places to put the bass drum that fits in with the bass guitar riff. And obviously if I'm writing the drums with a guitarist and then the bass comes later, it'll be like the other way around. But essentially that kind of locks in the bottom of the track, like the rhythm section. And then all the other parts of the kit, other than the backbeat, are kind of to decorate and fit into the music, where I put the crash cymbals, might run accents.
Yeah. Add some sparkle and
hi-hats, exactly. And then drum fills is like creating tension in the song before it goes into a different section, or maybe there's a build up in the bridge, all those kind of things. But yeah, there's a couple, I guess overall it is just the feel of the song and the journey that you want to take the song on.
Nice. So what about if you've got like writer's block or anything like that? Have you got any like sort of tips and tricks to sort of, help spark some inspiration? Like where do you get your inspiration from? Do you listen to well-known bands like Chili Peppers? I love the Chili Peppers. Like if you've got some writer's block, would you whack some Chili Peppers on and start off sort of copying a drum beat and changing it around? Or
not for me personally.
Okay.
I don't really. I mean, obviously I take inspiration from everything. I listen to like hip hop drummers, gospel drummers, drummers, rock drummers, metal drummers, the lot. Like I would say I listen to more music than I play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think I'm the same, especially at the moment, with like full-time job and stuff.
But sometimes you have to take a break from what you're doing and come back to the song another day.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I mean, I've had this in band practice with a new song a few times actually, in my experience, where like, the singer might have written a song with a guitar bit and vocals, and then I just can't find like the right drum bit to fit in.
Sure.
And then it's sometimes worth coming back to it, because like if I come back to it in another band practice, suddenly I just get it straight away, and it's just sometimes a feel thing, and you've got to lock into the other members of a band in that setting as well. And some days that works better than others.
It seems like it's very much like an improvisational process for you in terms of a band setting.
Yeah.
Sort of having to play around and sort of seeing how certain beats change the feel of the song and stuff like that. Is that right in my estimation?
Yeah, what I also tend to do is experiment with different ideas in the song. Like I might have written the basic bare bones, and then I'm like, you know what? We haven't finished the song yet. I'm going to try playing a tom beat in this bridge, for example.
Yeah.
And then I switch it up until I find the thing that like really seems to fit the song best. And sometimes I'll try it for one practice and be like, no, that didn't really work. But then other times it'll be like, it will actually add to the song and take it in a different direction. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely fun with drums because you can experiment a lot more than some of the other instruments, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, you could be playing the same riff over and over again, and all it takes for the drummer to place a snare somewhere completely different, and it really does sort of change that feel of the song.
Yeah, but I guess for someone that's kind of trying to learn this process, my advice would definitely be just to think of the basics. Where's the kick and the snare going? Like, that's really the first step, really, when you're trying to listen to a riff or a song that the singer-songwriter's written or something like that. Try and find where the kick and the snare feels best.
Yeah.
It is 100% feel. And then you can develop apart from there. But if you're kind of stuck, that's the first thing to pick up.
Nice. Interesting.
What about you with guitar?
Yeah, so I mean, for me with writing songs, there's many different ways I'll start writing a song. I think often it comes from a sort of an emotional standpoint rather than thinking I want to write a song this way. So for me, there's like two different ways you can go about the creative process. There's like the cognitive way where you're sort of what's the word? Let me just look at my notes. Sorry. Yeah. So the cognitive structure of a song, so like the story and sort of the outline, what you want to say with the notes that you're playing or the lyrics that you're writing, and then there's like the affective way, which is for me the way I would usually go about writing songs, which is like the more emotional side of it. So affective writing, sort of sits more of in that emotional standpoint. It doesn't really come from your brain. It's more of like a vibe thing. Definitely for me, if I'm starting out and I feel like I want to write something, I sort of really focus in on how I'm feeling in that moment. And like if I'm angry, I might start off just sort of chugging on open strings and write something a bit more metally. But if I'm sort of having that sort of like happy or sad happy sad vibes, I might try and play something a bit more melancholy. And sort of really just try and hone in on like the vibe of the song instead of sort of thinking about where it can go. Just sort of try and get in tune with the feeling and feel where it could go.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's harder to do it on drums. I think
you don't have the melody and stuff. So
yeah, the melody and the chord sequences that you're picking and the key that it's in and stuff, that really kind of takes that, I feel like.
I think definitely the emotion definitely comes from like the melodic standpoint in terms of writing. That's a bit more harder to convey in terms of a drum beat, unless you like going from one end of the spectrum like to the other, and you've got like just a simple 4/4 groove to like blast beats, which is clearly like aggressive.
Yeah, although to add to that, actually, with drums, I think the best thing about the drums is there's like infinite dynamics. So you can play the same beat so many ways and make it feel completely different. And I think that's the best bit about the instrument. So say if you take the basic sort of AC/DC beat, like stat, the basic backbeat, you could play the hi-hat slightly louder on certain beats with different accents. You could play like the snare super loud, but the hi-hat's really quiet. You could put the kick slightly behind the beat, for example. And all these different little changes and tweaks you make can make the song feel completely different. I think that's one of the best bit about the drums, because with guitar, there's only certain like, I guess there's a limit to the dynamic expression you can have.
Sure. Yeah, drums are definitely like the dynamic, instrument, and it's like the driving force behind, the energy of a piece of music.
But I'm just thinking actually, because I'm not very good at guitar. Like when I have written guitar parts, I've
got also, Gibson over there.
Oh, I know.
Where is it? Somewhere.
It's away now because I'm moving a house and stuff. But it's I've literally like looked up a key like F major and F minor or something random, and then I'm like, okay, I'll write a song in this key, and I'll have the key up because I don't know the key off by heart, right? Because I don't know theory, and then I'm like, okay, how does this key make me feel? And then I'll try and write like a chord sequence and a riff that fits in that key. So it's almost like you're picking a key that you wouldn't normally play, and then it's like writing something in that.
That's really interesting, because then you're giving yourself sort of like a guideline in which to write in, which is actually really important. I was watching some interviews on YouTube with Tony Visconti. He's David Bowie's producer, and he's talking about the song Heroes. Don't know if you know that off the top of your head. We
Not off the top
can
of my
be
head.
heroes.
Definitely recognise it.
Yeah. you have to listen to it, but yeah. So he was sort of saying like, you need to when you for that song, Heroes. They were sort of really willing to sort of start writing without a structure and sort of really focus in on the vibe. But also they needed, as they sort of progressed and they were writing, they were sort of really willing to commit to something like irreparable. So for example, we were just talking about like guidelines and stuff and sort of, limiting yourself. One of the things they did was put a flange on the bass guitar. And back then in those days, they were recording on like tape. So back then, one of the rules was, you don't put effects on tape because it's, it's there. You can't get rid of it. It's there forever.
Yeah, makes sense.
So if you make a mistake, that, tough tit, you've got to get on with it. But they kind of use that as like a writing tool, because it put them inside of a box to be like, okay, well now we've got this set in stone. We need to sort of go ahead and try and work our way around it. So I find that really interesting. That I think sometimes you need to put those like sort of limitations on yourselves in terms of writing. So the possibilities aren't too endless, and you're like, well, I've got 1,000 different directions to go. You sort of waste time, going a mile down one road.
That's a very good tip, I think, actually, because sometimes you're forced to be more creative when you have less to work with. Almost, it's the age-old thing about guitarists with effects pedals. Like sometimes, like plugging straight into the amp, you have to be more creative with your writing. Whereas if you're layering like 50 effects pedals or something, you could just play some random notes and make it sound good.
Yeah, sure. Effects, like the Edge from U2. We spoke about him last week. He's like a guitar effects heavy guitar player. Nothing he plays is overly complicated once you take all the effects off, and once they're all on there, that's like his writing tool.
That's another point to it, I suppose. Like it actually adds to the writing. Like it gives you those different possibilities and sounds. I mean, I've even experimented. Again, I'm not a guitarist, but even with like different delays, where you've got the delay overlapping the next note, kind of thing, and it makes you like play like completely differently.
Yeah, it does. No, absolutely. Like delay is like a really good tool. You can turn one note that sounds really boring into something that sounds really, really musical. So yeah, effects are another good thing. If your playing's getting a bit stagnant and you don't know where to go, whack some delay and like loads of reverb and some phase effects and sort of really hone in on the vibe.
What else do you do when you hit like a writer's block? Have you got any other techniques?
I think changing tuning is probably my go-to. Obviously, I'm like a bit more of like a rock metal guy. I do have guitars in like standard tuning, but usually I'm in like drop C sharp because it's a bit more chuggy. But definitely I'll change to this. There's this open tuning that I use, that Mark Tremonti. I'm gonna have to say it because we're gonna go on about Mark Tremonti quite a lot over the coming weeks, but he's like my idol. I've learned a lot from him. But he has this tuning called Dad. So from the thicker string to the thinner string, it's D-A-D-A-D-D. So I guess technically it's called open D5 tuning. That's definitely like a go-to tuning for me. If I'm having writer's block, because it's so impossible to play anything like wrong, in that you can use chords that would normally work in standard tuning, play them in this new like the open D5 tuning, you get like a totally different vibe and totally different feel. You can use just one finger in that tuning, the move bar just frets all the way up and get some really good, like really nice, beautiful chord progressions. I wish I brought my acoustic guitar, to be honest, or just looking around, so I could just sort of demonstrate what you can kind of do with it. I'll have to take a range.
We could do a different episode where we do that and demonstrate.
Yeah. That'd be absolutely, but that definitely, I think if you've got writer's block and you're just sort of not vibing, definitely change tuning. Like if you're a guitarist, try something new, something that you haven't normally done before. It doesn't matter that you don't know how the chords will translate. Just do it and, move your finger one fret up, one fret down, just see what happens.
100%. And even with drums, I'm thinking about, as you're talking, mixing up the toms you're using. Like you might want to switch from doing a hi-hat and a snare beat to just on the toms, or with the ride cymbal or something with the crashes, or double kick, just random things to try that might open up like a new sort of creative view on the song, I guess. Like just basically help you see the song in a different way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's like, really good example of, for a drummer of what to sort of change up and stuff. Like I said, it's just could be as simple as like a change in the placement of a snare or a kick can be enough to sort of spark some inspiration, and change the feel of a riff or guitar part or so on.
So thinking about artists that you've heard about professionally, have you had any like stories that you've heard or researched something about how someone
tips from like artists or
or producers or anything like that?
Yeah. So in terms of writing, I had a private guitar. A private guitar lesson with Mark Tremonti. In Bristol, and this must have been like 2017 or 2018, and so everyone was asking him, how do I become a faster player and stuff, and I sort of noticed no one was really asking about any like songwriting stuff. He's a phenomenal songwriter. And one of the tips he said was to make, when you're recording stuff, or if you're writing stuff, always make sure you're recording for a start, so you don't forget. You might stumble onto something, so you don't forget, that guitar part. Then that guitar part, you might be writing something else, 6 weeks later, and you're struggling to find a part for it. You can go and look through your folder of stuff, and as long as you've labeled it correctly, like this is in D minor at 120 BPM. You might be able to like pull that and shove it next to a part, and it it's like he kind of said it was like you're putting a puzzle together. So yeah, it's really important to just sort of record everything that you do and just sort of try and catalog it. So if you write something in C sharp minor or D minor, put that all in a file with D minor 100 and whatever BPM. You can refer back to it, and like if you've got like writer's block and stuff, you've got like this whole catalog of your own music that you can go through and be like, okay, does this fit? And then before you know it, you've got like a verse and a chorus and a bridge.
That's a very good tip. I think I'm not a songwriter or a singer by any means, but I've heard a lot of songwriters, they'll always take their lyric book with them to write down ideas like that, just so they've got it as like a catalogue. So when it comes to writing a song, they've got like all the ideas they can just draw on there that are good, rather than just having to be forced to come up with something completely from scratch.
I mean, Eminem's like a good example of someone who's like a songwriter, and he just like, have you seen 8 Mile?
Yeah.
So that obviously that's like based off his his sort of journey into becoming like a rapper and stuff. But he would take a pen and paper with him everywhere and just write down his thoughts and feelings on in hundreds of notebooks, and
turn it into a song eventually.
Turn it into a song eventually. Yeah, it could be something that you've written 10 years prior. It's all inspiration at the end of the day. So yeah, that's and again, for singer-songwriters, if you're I'm going to mention Mark Tremonti again because he's a god, but he also said that when you're sort of writing guitar parts, always try and, doesn't matter what the words are, it's all about the melody. When you're writing anyway, once you're like actually putting a song together, then you can focus in on like the meaning of the song, etc. But just make up like scat, just scat around, like say whatever words just come to mind. As long as you try and, when you're writing like a guitar part and stuff, and you sing along to it, that's often the vocals sort of can lead you in a direction that you weren't so sure of. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, that was just something he said that, I sort of remembered that if you're writing guitar parts, basically, always try and sing along to what you're playing. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone at the end of the day then. You've got these guitar parts, and, often your vocal melodies can sort of influence where your guitar parts are going to go, especially in terms of like key change and stuff. If I'm at home writing and I'm playing guitar and I'm like, okay, I don't really know where to go, I find that if I'm just humming along for it, even if it's in my head voice at 3 a.m, I don't want no one to hear. Often I hear like something in my head, vocal wise, that will sort of dictate where the guitar parts go next. And before I know it, I've got like a whole new section of a song. Even if I don't ever use it, it's
Yeah, that's another angle actually. Like thinking about how what you're playing fits in with the rest of the band. Like I'm playing this guitar, what would I imagine the drums to be? What would I imagine the bass to be? What would I imagine the vocals to be? Because that can shape your direction on your part quite a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times when I've written like guitar parts and I've got my own drums, and I've sent them to you and been like, what
I'll do it different.
Yeah, you do it totally different. I'm like, whoa, I've never thought to do that. Like, because I'm like, obviously I'm not a drummer.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of my time when I'm writing. Hang on, let me just make sure. I spend a lot of my time when I'm writing guitar parts, like fannying around with the drums, not knowing what I'm doing. It's more of like a feel thing for me instead of like a cognitive decision of like, this is what I want. It's like, okay, I think this is what I want. Let's just move some notes around and see what happens.
For sure. Yeah, I was just thinking about different creative stories that I've heard. So like,
yeah, sure.
One, I think it's one of System of a Down's like most famous songs. Maybe it was Chop Suey or Toxicity. I can't. One of those two. There's this bit in the bridge, and I've heard the story about Rick Rubin in the studio. I think his name's Serge Tankian. Is that the guy from System of a Down?
Yeah.
So he was struggling with writing a bridge for the song, and like literally, Rick Rubin told him to go in the library in the studio.
Oh yeah, and look at look at just open it up and put his finger down
and he did. He used that, and that was like the hook in the song.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most popular bits in the song that everyone sings along to.
At
club nights,
and it just happened randomly. Like David Bowie used to do stuff like that. Like he'd use like newspaper articles and clippings and like
he's
sort of
so creative.
He'd like cut them out and just sort of arrange them and try and write a song that way. Like there's so many different things you can do.
So that's another angle, I suppose. It's like take something outside of the music. That is like a really good example. Like you might be in the studio, maybe you've got to go on a long drive, go to somewhere different, like look at a view or something, because that can inspire you too. You can get inspiration from everything, not just music. Because that might, like we said earlier, embark a different emotion. And then when you go back into the studio, you think about the song differently. And it's like, oh, okay, it's fresh again.
You were talking about sort of Rick Rubin just a second ago. And he's very much like the creative process is I'm trying to think how to word it. We're all creative beings at the end of the day, whether we're creating music or not. When we're stringing sentences along or we're stuck in traffic, we're making creative decisions about how we're going to get from point A to point B and how we're going to make this make sense. And we can draw from our life's experiences to sort of, create our stories and, sort of pass on information in like a musical form. Basically my point is, Rick Rubin, is you can draw from all kind of experiences and sort of areas in life. It doesn't have to be music focused. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. 100%. I've heard him talk about, his job.
He's a god, man. Rick
As a producer,
crazy.
It's just about like helping the artists unlock their creativity. That's like how he sees his role. It's not to make them do anything or make decisions for them. It's kind of like, how do I get this artist in the space to make their best work? And that's all he wants to do. It's just unlocking the potential that's there. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's kind of like the channeler of it's like the antenna to a musician.
Very much so. So interesting guy as well. Like very much stories about him like barefoot in the studio and all that. And the fact that he works with like people from Slipknot to Jay-Z, it's like so varied.
Isn't Rick Rubin like one of the biggest hip hop producers? Like weirdly, it's all hip hop. Like it's his speciality.
But he's done like metal records, he's done everything. Like it's just crazy. But it's just it obviously shows that it doesn't matter the genre, right? Like the process is quite often the same, and like the key to unlocking that creativity is very similar, even if it's a completely different style of music.
Yeah, I mean, all it can take sometimes is for someone just to be on the outside who's not directly involved with writing parts, for someone to say, why don't you try this, like you said, with System of a Down. Just go into the library and open a book and just put your finger down and
100%.
see what comes out.
100%. And I'm thinking again back to me playing drums. Like I watch YouTube drum videos all the time because there'll be people like soloing and shredding and stuff like that. Basically, it just gives me ideas, and I'll hear like one little bit and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'll try and like play that on the kit. And I'll just use that as something that I've never played before, because you're kind of constantly expanding your repertoire of what you can play. And sometimes I can't get the part exactly the same, but actually then it's kind of better because you're doing your own version of what you've heard rather than just copying it. Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. What's that drummer? He's got a YouTube channel. I think he's Spanish.
Oh yeah, he's just blown up. Al something. I can't remember his name. But he's huge now. He's just started a band as well. I don't know if
that's right. That dude. He's got his own band now, but he would like do like covers of like 80s tracks and stuff and put like fucking crazy blast beats and like
Yeah,
all
make
sorts
them
of-
really cool and creative.
That
and
guy's the
different.
most insane drummer, to be honest, I've ever heard in my life. I don't know how he does the stuff he does, and he'll do it with one hand while drinking a cup of tea.
What's
like,
key about it is he's
I
going.
wish I knew his name.
he's-
What was his name?
He's going. He's just being
So he can
so.
let everyone know who he is. Check out
Everyone's gonna
Carry
know.
on, I'm
No,
gonna-
mate, it doesn't matter. Everyone's gonna know who we're talking about here. Like,
that drummer guy.
because
Like,
he pops up like on my social media constantly. Like, there's
yeah, same with mine as well.
up. But yeah, the main thing is with him is he's trying to be as creative as possible.
Mm.
Like, and that's an interesting thing to do as well. Like, play like a big 80s song and play around with ideas and see what you can make over it that's different, rather than just playing the beat. It's a good way to kind of enhance your own creativity because you're playing along to music rather than coming up with those ideas on your own. So
I just typed in drummer cover guy. Straight away, the first thing was him.
No way.
Al Estepario
yeah, there we go.
Siberiani. I butchered that, but
Yeah, that's why I didn't say it because I was like, I knew it was something like that. Al something.
yeah, Al Estepario Siberiana.
Sorry, dude, if you end up ever watching this.
Yeah, we've absolutely mullered that, but yeah, man, like, yeah, that dude, like, oh man, I watched some of his drum covers. I'm like, damn, I want to write some gnarly riffs to that. Like,
but again, he's a
He's
good example
insane.
of like just extreme creativity, and you can
Mm.
take that to any instrument, because there's plenty of guitarists that do really creative things like with the guitar as well. It's the same kind of thing, man. It's just thinking outside the box, I'd say.
yeah, there's that other YouTube channel. You'll know what it's called. I can't remember. When they get oh god, I'm trying to think of an example. The drummer from Chili Peppers.
Oh, Drumeo, you're talking
Drumeo,
about,
that's it. Yeah. And they're like, they've never heard this song before.
Yeah, I love watching those.
Yeah, they're so
entertaining.
good. And he did was it that 30 Seconds to Mars song?
Yeah,
I can't remember what it's called.
the really famous one.
The really famous one.
I don't know the name of it. I can think of the melodies
Is
only.
it Bury Me? Bury Me, Bury Me.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
people will know from that.
Yeah, that one. One with Jared Leto. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, and they'd like just sort of come up with their own things, and it just completely like changes the feel of the song.
Mm.
He did a really amazing version of that. There's a lot of amazing drummers that have gone on there and just
I've watched most of them.
metal drummers are doing like blues stuff, or blues drummers doing metal stuff, and you're just like, man,
They're so entertaining when it's like completely different genres. Like I find as well, like because they do it in such a different way, and that's what came across with that series actually. Like when they got like a jazz drum doing like a hard rock song,
Such a genius
like,
idea.
whoa.
I'm so jealous. Like,
but like we said before, with the drums, it's easiest to do that. You don't have to play in a certain key. Like you just match the rhythms with what you're hearing, and it does show watching that how like different everyone approaches writing a song as well. Like everyone that was on there did it differently. Like some people were writing out charts, some people just did it purely by ear.
Yeah. Just
Some people were
improvise
like
along
playing
through.
ideas and stuff like that. Someone like Chad Smith was just like a really great musician in terms of listening, because the Chili's are known for like how well they jam and lock in together.
Yeah.
So he's obviously just done that for like 30 years or 40 years at this point, I think. And
Yeah, he just starts
can
doing
lock
it like
in.
it's nothing. He's like, oh, this is in 3/4. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
He just
what?
gets the
It's
feel
like,
of it.
dude,
And,
like, that's insane.
So that's where you can see the musicianship, when someone can listen, because it's all about listening to the other people in the band. And obviously the Chili's, like I said, are just a good example of that, because most of their songwriting has come from them jamming.
Yeah.
Right, they just jam and they listen to each other and they bounce ideas off, and then pretty much all their songs are written from that. Like, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, no, I do like the Chili's. I think I said last time, I've like, the more I listen to them, the more they sort of grow on me, especially for like vibing and stuff.
There's depth to their music. They're one of those, because it's quite emotional. Like they're one of those bands where there's a lot of emotion that comes through what they're playing and passion. And so the more you get into it, the more you kind of appreciate that kind of aspect of their
Every
playing.
song's about California.
There is too many about California.
Yeah. Danny California, I think that was
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite ones. And then, like I said last time, Don't Forget Me. But we're kind of drifting a bit, but it's all kind of relevant,
Yeah, creative process. So what else have we got to say about the creative process?
Get out there and just start writing shit, man. Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. Like,
That's it, right? Like if you're learning an instrument, start writing your own songs as
Yeah,
early as
yeah,
you
for
can.
sure. You can even start.
I do think that. Even if you're not very good, like just start writing a power chord song, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So something I do if I'm like deaf and if I'm like really stuck, I'll go listen to some of like my favorite songs, listen to their chord progressions,
Yeah.
learn them, and be like, okay, how can I play these differently? So I might take something that's like, you know, kind of like a rocky, ballady type chorus, and I might like try and finger pick it, and it might, you know, and slow it down a bit, and then it sounds completely different, and it's, you know, that's become like a verse part.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with there. I genuinely believe this. There's nothing wrong with essentially stealing, you know, or getting inspiration from chord progressions and stuff.
Something that exists
that's
already.
out there. Yeah.
That's interesting for me. Like, obviously, again, I'm a drummer that tries to play guitar, but I've done it before with guitar where I've copied the rhythm of the guitar, but
Yeah.
I haven't played the same notes. But the rhythm of the things is exactly the same, but it's just a different like chord sequence or different place on the neck or different key.
Yeah.
So it sounds very different, but the actual like rhythmic playing is the same.
Dave Grohl was a really good example of this. He like for was it like what's that Nirvana song? Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
I think the drum intro for that he ripped straight off of like disco beats and stuff. Yeah. I can't remember the specific band name.
He plays that in so much of his drum parts
He's like
as well.
he just ripped it off of like
the flam,
old disco.
Yeah.
Old disco beats and like funk grooves and stuff. So you could there's literally no harm in like listen to your favorite artists and totally ripping them off as long as you know you're not stealing vocal melodies and
especially if it's different. If it's a different genre, like that's where it's really cool. Like when you take something and put it into a different genre, it's like
you can change the time signature, like something that's in 4/4, try it in 3/4 or 6/8 or 5/4 or 7/8. Sort of mix it up and really play up the feel. You can create something completely brand new.
100%. Yeah, I think we are finished on this.
Was this a short one? This one? I don't know how long we've been going.
Who knows? But I think we're there today. So hope you've enjoyed today's talk about the creative process and got something from that.
Yeah, we can expand on this anyway in later episodes. Just as we're getting our footing. Like I said last time, we'll turn the cameras off and I'm like, should have said this, should have said that. But cool, man. Well, hopefully you guys find some interesting tips for this, and given some valuable information that you can go off and use to go and start creating your own masterpieces and stuff.
Absolutely, so, get writing music. That's what we're going to say. Like, just get writing, especially with other people as well. That's an important part.
Absolutely. Go to improv nights, go to jam nights, write with people online. Just write music, as much as you possibly can.
All right, nice one. Yeah, speak soon.
Cheers, guys. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.